says it is 7:01. So we'll call the meeting to order this evening. Thank you for being here, everyone. I believe that Lillian has welcomed and sworn in our board members, but we would like to welcome Becky, and could you say your last name for me?
Karish.
Becky Karish. And Kristen Noonan was not able to be here this evening, and she's also a new member to the board. So congratulations to the two of you, and congratulations to our re-elected members as well. I'd like to move into public comments. I do not see student representatives here this evening, so we will not have that portion of the report. Laura, are there folks signed up for public comment?
Yes, Kathleen Stark.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Stark, and I'm from Fitzwilliam. All 5 of our children attended the Monadnock Regional School District from elementary school through high school. All 5 are successful adults, with 4 of the 5 having earned postgraduate degrees. We owe a lot to this school district. There are many fine educators in our system, some of whom have been here since our kids were in attendance. Our tenure as a Monadnock family began in 1985, when our daughter entered first grade at Emerson, and didn't end until 2007, when our youngest 2 graduated. Tonight, I'm here to ask the Monadnock Regional School Board to consider sanctioning an advisory committee and to authorize that committee to investigate and determine a fair apportionment school tax formula for the district. As you are aware, the school tax debate is a very heated topic. Since the election last week, talks have taken place on how to approach the situation. We feel that having the school board's oversight and supervision would provide the guidance needed to accomplish a much-needed end result. With an official committee, well-qualified individuals can be appointed from each of the 6 member towns in the district. An advisory committee would give each town equal representation, which is important to ensure the commitment and cooperation of those willing to be involved in the process. Having a duly appointed school board advisory committee, I was just told is also known as an ad hoc committee, would also greatly reduce the risk of any individual or town having too much control in the process. It would also allow us to have a more realistic approach and to view the issue from all points of view. We would have a mutual understanding of the goals and an appreciation of everyone's concerns. We have a great challenge ahead, and with your guidance and help, we can achieve the goal of becoming a unified district, which will strengthen us as a Monadnock Regional School District community. Thank you.
Laura?
Yes, Robert Young.
My name is Robert Young, also from Fitzwilliam, and speaking in support of what Kathy just said, I'd like to add that I've seen what I think is an unprecedented commitment to look more deeply at all the different ways of looking at fairness and to look more deeply at how the numbers work out. And I think there's a chance, like there's probably never been before, to my knowledge, to come to a closer understanding. I understand that it's a contentious issue that people are reluctant to get involved in, and the end result will not make every voter happy. But I'm very confident that we can reduce the total amount of unhappiness in the district if we do this, and get to a situation where people will be able to focus more on the kids without also having to be distracted by fighting each other over funding. So I urge you to adopt what Kathy suggested in some form. Thank you.
Laura? Okay. Is anyone else here who would like to speak? You can come up to the microphone even if you haven't signed up. Okay. Great. Seeing none, we'll move into the action items on the agenda this evening. The first order of business will be the election of school board officers, and we will start with the election of the board chair. And at this time, I would welcome any nominations for the position of board chair.
I'd like to nominate Rob.
Rob Colbert.
Colbert.
Yep.
He's the only Rob now.
Only Rob now. Is there a second for that nomination?
Sure.
There is a second from Winston. Rob, do you accept the nomination?
Is it possible to hear more about the job description in terms of hours and responsibilities?
Sure. Let's finish the nomination. We'll come back to whether you accept or not, because I saw another hand. Betty?
I'd like to nominate Lisa Stedman.
Okay. Nomination. And Sherry seconded that. Lisa, would you accept the nomination? Okay. And are there any other nominations from the group? Lisa, would you be comfortable speaking about the role of the chair and answering the question that Rob had posed about sort of the time commitment and things like that, since you've been serving in this role for some time?
Sure. In the role of board chair, you would be responsible to meet with Lisa Witt ahead of the meeting, usually the Tuesday before, between the Tuesday and Thursday before, to come up with agenda items. You would be reviewing any sort of confidential information that comes through that may be presented to the full board in the upcoming meeting. Copied on lots of conversations that may be important for you to know should it come to the board in the future. You are allowed to be present at all of the committee meetings as a voting member if you wish. You could get calls from time to time to fill in if they don't have quorum. You might have a text chain going with Lisa constantly all of the time because things come up, school cancellations, a certain something is posted on a Facebook page that folks should know about, just keeping everyone in the loop. It's an everyday thing, but I wouldn't say that it's hours every day.
Yes, I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. So we have nomination seconded for both Rob Colbert and Lisa Stedman, and we already closed for other nominations. So I think how we handled this last year was instead of a yes or a no vote, we did a vote for either or, and that would be a roll call vote, obviously. So I will turn to Jeremy for that.
Can I request a recorded vote?
Yep.
Thank you.
That's what I meant to say, yeah. And so you can just voice vote, but with first name. I don't think we need to use last names.
Win.
Oh, they're not going to speak?
I didn't even think of that. Would either candidate like to speak?
They would like to speak about the position to becoming board chair?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to remain as board chair if the board would allow me. I think I've developed a strong relationship with Lisa Witt. We have a good open line of communication, and things move more quickly when you have a good open line of communication. And I'm just looking forward to continuing on this path. As the board may know, I'll be having a baby soon. That gives me 4 months off, a little more time to handle the responsibilities of the school board in my time off, and I am looking forward to what we'll be able to accomplish in that time.
Rob?
I wasn't really looking to be chair. I do appreciate the nominations. As board chair, I guess one of my main thoughts, and I've shared this with some people, is to really become goal-oriented at a high level. And having 2 or 3 accomplishments that we focus on the year, despite or in addition to the other things that come along. But really a 30,000-foot view, and let the administrators do their jobs, and we support them appropriately and hold them accountable appropriately. That'll be it.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll move the vote. Jeremy?
Win.
Lisa Stedman.
Aaron?
Lisa?
Neil?
Rob.
Nick?
Rob?
Brian?
Rob.
Jerry?
Lisa?
Becky?
I feel a little unqualified, but I have to say.
You can, there are a couple options. You can pass and come back to you at the end. I mean, you can abstain if you choose.
I abstain.
Rob?
Lisa?
Eric? Rob? Eddie?
Lisa.
Scott?
Lisa.
Lisa?
Lisa?
3.531 Rob, 7.233 Lisa, 1.121 abstain, 1.115 absent.
Congratulations, Lisa. I am happy to turn the imaginary gavel back over to you.
Thank you very much. We'll now take nominations for vice chair of the school board.
I'd like to nominate Rob.
Second.
What are you doing?
Betty?
Scott Peters.
Second.
I didn't catch the second for Rob, I'm sorry.
I
was Sherry.
Okay.
Oh, and
Oh,
Karen.
sorry.
Did you get that, Jeremy? Okay. Are there any other nominations? Would either of the candidates like to speak?
I've spoken, I'm good.
Okay. Oh, Scott, anything?
I'm willing to serve. I don't really have an aspiration to run the board per se, but I think I serve well as a facilitator when needed, so I'm here to continue if that's the will of the board.
Are we ready for a vote? Jeremy, go ahead.
Win.
Hi, my name is Scott.
Scott, I can't read the sign there.
Aaron.
Rob.
Neil.
Rob,
Nick.
Rob.
Ryan.
Rob.
Sherry.
Scott.
Becky.
Abstain.
Rob.
Abstain.
Eric.
Scott.
Betty.
Scott.
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 Lisa.
Scott.
'Twice
3.167
tonight.
Rob. 2.476 Scott. 2.2.
How's that feel?
Could you repeat that, Jeremy?
Tried Rob.
All right, we do need to move on to nominations for chair, treasurer, and secretary of the SAU. Per the policy, there is no vice chair of the SAU. So I'll take nominations for chair of the SAU.
nominate Lisa Stedman.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? I would accept the nomination. And is there any other discussion?
Maybe for the public, could you clarify as we go through each of these, the duties of...
That's tough, but yes. So the SAU chair serves very much like the chair of the school board in leading any meeting that might be specifically over SAU issues. The SAU is an umbrella over the school district. However, we are a single district SAU, so it's incredibly rare for us to have any sort of meeting that would involve dealing with strictly SAU issues. And just to continue on, the treasurer and the secretary of the SAU have no responsibilities that I have witnessed in the 9 years that I've been on the board. Is that accurate?
Yes, I have not witnessed any of those responsibilities either.
So this is purely procedural. So let's take a vote on SAU chair, if there's no other discussion. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Win.
Lisa?
Aaron.
Lisa.
Neil.
Lisa?
Lisa.
Ryan.
Lisa.
Sherry.
Lisa.
Becky.
Lisa.
Rob.
Lisa.
Eric. Lisa. Betty.
Lisa.
Scott.
Lisa.
And Lisa.
Nailed it. Okay. So do we have any nominations for the SAU treasurer? Winston?
Nominate Mary Carlson.
Does have to be a member of the board.
Does it?
Yep.
Well,
Nominate Win.
All right.
I'd rather be the secretary.
You're going to be the treasurer this year.
Make them both.
Do you accept the nomination for
I would, yes.
her? Okay. So we've got
Tough
Winston. Any other nominations?
No, but I have a question.
Yes.
What's the distinction then between Nancy Carlson as a treasurer and then this treasurer that we're voting on? What's the difference?
Hers is an official elected position, am I right?
She's appointed by the board,
Appointed
actually.
by the board, okay.
We're elected.
So there's,
Right.
and she does the work.
She's the signatory.
Yeah.
Yep.
right, so we have Winston as the nominee for treasurer of the SAU. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, congratulations, Winston. Do we have any nominations for secretary?
Nick?
I don't accept.
Just trying to get you back. Any other nominations for secretary?
Can I ask who our current secretary is, or was?
I believe it's Winston.
Okay.
I nominate Winston.
Second.
Can he hold both positions?
I don't believe it's prohibited.
Yes,
Okay.
I think you can.
Yep. We don't believe it's prohibited, so will you accept the nomination?
Yes. I've had it for a few years now.
Any discussion on this? All right. All in favor of Winston as secretary of the SAU?
Aye.
Aye.
Took a while, guys. You were making me nervous. Opposed?
You switched it up on
And
us.
abstention.
We voted for you, and then we did a.
That's because we were wasting time.
Yeah.
All right, so congratulations, Winston. You're especially liked this evening.
It's had to be a job of doing nothing.
All right. So that brings us on to evaluating the standing committees, policy BDE. If you could grab that from your packet, you'll see the list here of the standing committees that we have. And it was asked of us at the most recent board meeting to evaluate which of these should still be in effect. It would be a policy change if we decided to dissolve any of them. However, that is a discussion that needs to be had by the board. I will open to discussion or any sort of motion right now.
Lisa, can I? Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
I believe technology has already been removed from this list, but I don't believe that it requires a policy change because it states that the school board may have the following standing committees. So I think if you wanted to have a different one, you need to add it to this list, but I think you can not have a standing committee that's on this list the way it's written.
Nick?
I think you have to keep it on the list unless you actually do a policy change. You don't have to enact, and you don't have to have the committee, but in order to remove it from the list, it has to be voted on.
Yes. Yep.
First
I wasn't
and
clear,
second.
sorry.
Karen?
I would make the motion to have the current committees meet as they have this past year.
And by that, you mean facilities and finance combined?
Correct.
And education deals with technology issues?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Right. Is there any discussion on that? Betty, sorry.
I was going to suggest that maybe we make it, I'm glad you're leaving technology in so it doesn't get totally left by the wayside, but would you do education/technology and facilities/finance?
We know that facilities/finance is the way it is on the website right now.
Yep.
However, education does not have a /technology. If that's
No.
what you're asking, would it be a friendly amendment?
That would be a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Okay with you, Win?
I
Win?
have a concern there because technology can be a very busy operation for the committee, and education and usually has a full agenda at this time. I have no problem if you think we can handle it, Betty.
We have been. We had Neil to one of the last meetings,
Yeah.
and so far, so good.
All right, any other discussion on this motion? Rob?
Can we backtrack a little bit and talk about the mission statement / purpose of the committees? Because, there's very good discussion going on at the committees I've been at, but I don't necessarily see how they wind up to, because we end up having the same exact discussion in open board that we have in the committees, at least the committees I've been on.
Occasionally, yeah. So how would the chairs of the committees as of most recent meeting feel about giving a brief 2-minute summary of what it is that their committee has been focusing on? So Scott, CRC?
I'm actually not CRC chair, but I can speak to policy. What I was also going to remind everyone is that in the past 2 years, each committee has been responsible for developing a charter. And last year was the first time, I believe, where each committee was asked to bring forward their charter for a revised edit if the committee felt there should be one, or a motion to, adopt the charter for another year go forward. It's a way for each committee to present to the board their intent, their focus for the year, reaffirm their purpose if membership is changing and that sort of thing. So I think we can speak to the purpose of each committee tonight, if you'd like to do that. But I would, not motion, but politely suggest that every committee do the same thing again. Let's reassess what our charters are and if they're the right things to be focusing on.
All right, and Sherry, you are the chair of CRC, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When we get there, we'll start with you, okay?
Okay.
Brian?
So if I may, maybe just comment on, my reason for delving into this conversation. So, I understand I wasn't here for an entire full year, but in my recollection, it was rare that we had items from policies that the board took action on. So one of my, reasons for this discussion is if we have committees that meet that never end up bringing anything to the board, then what are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? And does the committee really have any value?
Thank you very much for that. Sherry, we'll let you start. Purpose of community relations.
Since I've been on the board, there's been a real desire to have some legitimate outreach to staff, to community members, and to students as well. And so really working towards that, we had developed a charter. We have a communication plan, still need to do some work on it. And so the first duties, as we discussed them at the last committee meeting, was going to be to elect a chair, review the survey results of recent work that's been done in the district in terms of feedback, and set up that communication plan and set goals for the committee. So that's our first meeting when we get back together.
Okay, let's move on to education next.
Yes, we worked on, coming out of some of these discussions that we've had, we asked for a review of the homework policy, which has been completed, and I believe approved by the board at this point, has it? Maybe we're not quite, because we sent it back for you to do, to resurvey people. But that was one of them. Probably in May, there's a group that will come forward and give us an idea of what they're thinking in changing the teacher evaluation process. That was another request that we made. And then social studies came to us with changing requirements for social studies, and I'll get into that when it's time for a vote of the board. But so those types of things. We've also monitored what's been happening with STEAM, and if there were any test results that have come through, we monitored those. And we're kind of a place where if there is a group within the district that's been working on a project for primarily teachers, and they would like the blessings of the board, we're the committee they come to.
Do you have anything to say about technology?
Just that we've met with Neil now and then, not on a regularly scheduled basis, but I'm trying to remember why it was we had him come the last time. I think it was a question that Neil Moriarty had raised about...
What did I do wrong now?
Not a thing, Neil, but you had a question about, I'm trying to remember, something to do with technology, and we ended up, oh, I know, maybe it was Rob. It was the concern about the level and the age of the technology in the trades area. And so we had Neil come and talk with us about that. So it's not, we don't see him as much as we did when there was a separate technology committee, but as needed, he's more than willing to come and talk with us.
Okay. Finance and facilities?
Yes, finance and facilities, generally in the beginning of the year when we meet, we have everyone talk about what they'd like to accomplish at the beginning of the year, or throughout the committee. In the fall is when Finance and Facilities gets the most busy, as we review the budget and we also review the warrant articles. And we make a suggestion to the full board as to whether we agree as a committee with the warrant article being put forward. All of the warrant articles are then voted on at the full board. We also meet weekly with the facilities director and business administrator. We handle budget transfers that the business administrator may put forward. We also have toured the facilities and plan to do that this upcoming spring. We already toured Mount Caesar and Cutler, and we were waiting for some of the snow to disappear before we viewed the rest of the buildings. This past year, we worked with Dave to get the review of all the buildings. That's the primary things that we do.
Okay. And that brings us to negotiations. Negotiations will have 2 contracts to deal with this coming year. Because our teacher's contract was only a 1-year contract, we will be negotiating again. And because sadly the MESA contract failed at the full vote, we will be working on that one again. And policy?
So policy committee is often sort of a clearinghouse effort when other committees are developing strategies and they want to refer something to become potentially a policy. The policy committee then takes those recommendations and looks at, do we have existing policies that are in play? Are we talking about something new? Is there a standing policy with the New Hampshire School Board Association or not that we should consider as a starting point? I believe a year and a half ago, we asked New Hampshire School Board Association to do a full audit of our policies, and we're still working through that backlog. We also receive an update alert from the School Board Association every 6 months, alerting us to either sample policy changes or RSA changes that we should be focusing on. I think part of why maybe there wasn't a lot of activity coming to the full board was that we took on a few meaty policies where we were back and forth with administration, combined with some, missed meetings due to weather and things like that. And when the group only meets once a month, that can feel like there's a big lull in what's being produced. Right now, the policy committee has a little over 130 items in backlog, either recommendations on RSA changes on down to simple things like a clarity request or a, hey, do we have a policy on this type of question? And so I think you saw from our last full board meeting, I think we have 8 to 10 policies now we've presented forward. It's up for second read tonight, and I think we're going to have hopefully a stream like that of 5 to 10 every 2 weeks. We'd like to nudge through and get through as much of the backlog this year as we can.
Thank you. Extracurricular committee?
A couple things. We worked on the stipend issue, awards, Hall of Fame memorialization, things that we want to look at the school. I think the issue with the extracurriculars, we only had 3 people most of the year, and it was almost impossible to have a meeting because of people's agendas. I think it's really important that we have at least 5 on a committee. The other thing is, I think 2 months, every 2 months for a meeting is not enough. I feel that in our other meetings. I think that if we really want to accomplish things, we have to have a more set schedule or something, because by the time you if you do something in October and then you come back in December, you spend your first 20 minutes trying to remember what you did and talk about and rehashing everything you did. And I really think we should look at, if we want to get more out of these, I think we need to either have more of these or come up with a different way to do these. I just don't think I don't see that we're having a ton of success or we're getting a ton out of the committees, not like we used to.
We also appoint official liaisons to the Cheshire Career Center, the Budget Committee, and the Wellness Committee. Winston, could you speak to the Cheshire Career Center?
Well, Cheshire Career Center has a committee of advisors, and each district it belongs to it has a member representative from the school board, plus community members that are on the same committee. They meet twice a year minimum, They have an opening meeting in the fall, and they have a spring session to review what they've done and go through the programs for each year. And right now, we're finishing up working on signing the contract between the district and the Cheshire Career Center, and that should be done most any time. Jeremy has been very kind to work on that and do the revisions that needed to be done with the superintendent, and I hope I can still be on that committee for this year. That's up to you guys.
Budget Committee was Brian.
We meet once a month. The Budget Committee, as some of you may know, sets the budget number. My concern this year was there was not a lot of action from that committee this year. Outside of setting the budget, after that, there's a lot of meeting and a lot of discussion, and this committee really came or created my question on what we're trying to accomplish here in committees. Because as far as the Budget Committee is concerned, my observation maybe, or my own opinion, after they set the number, there's, 7 meetings of questionable conversation, I think.
Okay. And
Lisa?
Yes.
And just to be clear, that budget committee, it's not a committee of
That's
this.
a representative.
Right. Yeah. To change that, we would need to put that on the warrant.
Just to be clear to everybody.
And the Health and Wellness Committee liaison? So, and I'll speak to that I have been the liaison to the Health and Wellness Committee in the past. I'm not certain who that is right this minute. But when meetings are called for the Health and Wellness Committee for the high school, they often include conversation about nutrition and fitness and policies for soda machines in the high school, or what sort of snacks should be sold in the concession stands and so on. That's not a very time-consuming position to be the liaison to that committee, but it does sometimes mean meeting sort of midday or whenever the teachers are just getting out of school, because that's the convenient time for them. Okay. Based on what we've just heard, are there any of the committees that the board feels we need to discuss any further as to their value for the full board? All right. Any discussion at all about the motion which is on the floor, which is to keep last year's committees just as they are, with finance and facilities combined, and with education adding A/technology? Nick?
Would just be clear for our new board member here, as far as what this is going to entail, if she would like to participate on one of these.
Later in the meeting, there's going to be a list coming around, and the list will ask you if you want to participate in any of the committees. There's a number of committee members that are traditionally set for each of the committees, and as that goes around, people will be filling in what they're interested in, and the board chair begins to assign people to each of the committees. Okay. All right, are we ready for a vote? Jeremy? Actually, no, we don't need to do the full roll call. All right, all in favor of Karen's motion? Neil?
No, I was to say aye when you stop.
All in favor of Karen's motion to keep last year's committee structure, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. We're good. Lisa?
Just one more item. It would be a good idea at this time to identify 2 representatives from the board to sit on the sick bank committee in the event that a member of the MDEA wishes to access the sick bank. There's a committee that consists of 2 board members and also representatives from the MDEA.
All right. Why don't I add that to the list that's coming around?
Okay. And the time commitment for that is very minimal. I think we've had 1 request for sick bank since I've been here, so it would just be to have the hearing and determine if the criteria is met, and the day should be granted.
All right. Let's start the list with Eric. So, Becky, you'll be toward the end and you can kind of see what's available there, and does that feel okay for you?
That's to sign up for committee. You should pass it down there and start.
Not bad. Hey, almost made it.
All right. We do have a proposed board meeting calendar if you want to dig that out of your packet. And it follows the traditional first and third Tuesdays, as it always has. Those meetings will be held at 7 p.m. at the locations listed. The pattern is really that if we're going to go off-site away from the high school, then it would be the off-site meeting will happen on the first Tuesday of the month, and the meeting inside of the high school will happen on the third Tuesday of the month. There is one exception. In January, the first Tuesday would have been the 8th. Luckily, there are 5 Tuesdays in the month of January, so we'll meet on the second and the fourth Tuesday instead of first and third. Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt this calendar?
These are all Tuesdays?
All Tuesdays.
So moved.
Second.
I guess if it's crossed
Any
off,
discussion?
assume.
Karen?
I don't know.
In the past, we've had a few motions
I see.
mid-year
Oh, I see.
suggesting that we change it because one of the meetings is during
I gotta do it again.
during a break of, so I'm wondering if we should look at that. Because I would prefer to follow the schedule ahead of time than have a motion mid-year to change the date. So if one of these falls during a school break or February or April, we may want to look at that at this time.
So we want to look at November 27th, and which is not here, so we're good.
And I'm sorry I didn't look at that
Would've been
ahead.
the 4th.
Oh, I'm glad you
We're
remembered it.
avoiding both February and April vacations on this.
On this,
Yeah.
okay.
And Christmas, and then the last summer, we had
I'll walk
moved.
the list.
We used to have Gilsum in August, and last summer, I think we moved it to July because it better accommodated the cleaning schedule, and I think that that is still the case. So that looks like it's well placed as well.
Also note that the snow dates for all regular board meetings will be the following in-session school day. So if we're snowed out on Tuesday, we would meet Wednesday. However, if we're also snowed out on Wednesday, we would meet Thursday. Does that make sense? Karen?
Is that in conflict with our current policy, which is we just don't meet, or is that enough of a posting? Like, if we were to post, say, the school board meeting for Tuesday and it was snowed out, or say extracurricular activities were discontinued on that Tuesday night, I don't think that would be posted long enough for us to meet on the following Wednesday.
The posting will say that the snow date is on Wednesday. So when it's posted for Tuesday, that posting will say, if we don't have school in session on Tuesday, we'll be meeting on Wednesday, and that is enough notice per 91A.
And it's 24 hours, and so typically we know we're canceled either in the morning or at the very least before school gets out. So even if we posted the meeting for the next day, that would still be within the outside of the 24-hour window. Or
I
within
haven't
the
got it in
24
front of me, but is there any of these meetings that were in another building that would be snowed out? Is that you might be in conflict with the use of the building?
That's true.
Right. So December is Roxbury Town Hall. We don't usually have a lot of snow in December. It's generally,
You a weatherman now?
no, what I'm saying is we've never had a board meeting snowed out in December. It's traditionally happened in February and March when the board meetings are snowed out. So Mount Caesar Elementary School would be February 5th. And we'd have to work with them ahead of time if we were snowed out on that day. Winston.
November 6th is an election day. Does that interfere? I think we're having state elections this fall in September as well as but I think it's the first one in November. We always hit on election day because that's state law. I believe it's RSA. And I think we should look at that. I know it affects myself because I'm working the polls and some other people. And I don't know if we use the schools now at all.
Yeah, we do.
Up in Gilsum, yeah.
Yeah, so it could affect some schoolwork.
Do you have a suggestion about that? Do you want to make a motion?
I was trying to remember what we did the last time we went around on this.
I think you were not present at the meeting and most of the
I
other
think I
board
missed the
members were.
meeting on the last time you held it as regular, and
And that was unfortunate that you missed the
Russ,
meeting.
the way life is.
Does
That's
any-
just a concern. If it started, instead of waiting until the 6th to work on it.
I also had the concern that we don't want to overlap with Swansea's deliberative session either.
It's true.
And if Swansea chooses to keep the same schedule that they did this year, we would certainly overlap with them, but we won't know for several months when they're setting their deliberative. So I didn't want to upset our calendar, not knowing if there was going to be a conflict. We can address that down the road if you'd like, yes.
I'm looking at the proposed school calendar, and if we did the same thing that we did in, is it February? And just do it the second and fourth Tuesdays, I think it would work. Because the 13th, school is in session, and the 27th is the Tuesday after the Thanksgiving break.
And we
I don't know
would,
if that would jam us up, though, for December.
we would be meeting 2 Tuesdays in a row in the month of December.
Okay. I don't know.
So we could do the 13th and the 27th and not have a board meeting on December 4th. However, no, we do need to because that's when we're looking at warrant articles. It's a
Yes.
very busy time. So it could be fortunate for us to have 2 Tuesdays in a row.
Is it plausible just to push the November 6th meeting to the 7th and just make that as posted?
How does the board feel about that?
Sure.
Sure.
For just one, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. And so we'll have to check with Cutler School.
So it would be November 7th, which is a Wednesday.
Yes. Any other ideas? All right. So we have a motion to,
Do we have a motion?
do we have a motion? No, not yet. When
Yes,
anyone.
we do.
I thought I moved it, and I will accept those as friendly amendments.
Okay, I only have one friendly amendment, and that's to move November 6th to the 7th, which is a Wednesday. All right, did I miss anything? All right, all in favor of accepting the calendar with the change only to November 6th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions? Good, we've got a calendar.
Do we have a manifest coming around? Just in the busyness of the night.
I turn to Jeremy.
Want to forget it.
Thank you.
Did we swear in the new people?
Yes.
We did? I missed that.
Did before.
Before the meeting, I
I
did.
didn't. She cornered me.
Board members to sign off.
Yes.
I apologize. I was going to backtrack for a second. BDE, the board committees policy, I was just reading the bottom paragraph, and it looks like it's in conflict with another policy we have, so we may want the policy committee to look at that. Because it says, a meeting of the committee comprising more than 50% of the membership of committee shall constitute quorum. It's that, or we should look at the other policy regarding quorum.
Okay. Will you put that on the log for whoever is?
You don't
okay.
happen to know what the other policy is?
I don't remember, I just know that it's 3.
Quorum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's the quorum one.
We'll take a look. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the school year calendar. We all have copies of that in our packet as well. And I will take any sort of a motion on the school year calendar, unless, would the board like to hear Lisa Witt point out anything that may be of interest first?
It's pretty similar to this year's, with the passage of the MDEA agreement. One of the items in the contract was that at the beginning of the year, we would identify from the workshop days how those days would be used. So whether they'd be principal-driven days, district-driven days, or teacher-driven days, conferences, and so on. So those are reflected at the bottom. Those days already existed. We just didn't, sometimes we set them out at the beginning of the year, and sometimes we'd get partway through the year and we'd switch it up. And so just for planning purposes, it was a good idea. And now is reflected in the contract that those will be spelled out. I said conferences. Oh, yeah, right. Other than that, the only other changes, we did move conferences into earlier in the school year, and I'm going to let Jeremy speak to that really quickly. And other than that, I don't think there's anything that's very different from what we've done in the past. So, Jeremy?
Yeah, so this is an idea that came out of report card committee and a couple other of the teacher curriculum committees, is to have conferences mid-trimester for the elementary schools. And we spoke with Lisa Spencer about it, and it won't really mess up what's going on at the high school, so that we can have teachers talk to parents or talk to kids and parents through the trimester when, you know, we can really affect change instead of the conference being just about the report card at the end. The hope is that this will allow for better conversation and better connection with the parents. It also gives kind of the parents and the teachers more opportunity to connect. So they'll connect at open house, they'll connect at mid-trimester conferences, then they'll get a written document, they'll get their report cards at the end of the trimester, then they'll have another mid-trimester conference. So it just allows for more communication.
Thank you. We also should point out that President's Day is not during February vacation.
Right.
February vacation is the 4th week of February. And the kids will attend school on President's Day. Was there anything else unusual? Christmas vacation is nice and long. I know Lisa had some requests not to have school on January 2nd, but there is school on January 2nd. Sorry, folks, there is school. Other than that, not really anything that would jump out or be controversial in any way. All right. So do I have a motion to accept this calendar? Instead?
I make a motion we accept the 2018-19 school year calendar as presented, subject to changes as necessary. And has this been given to the union for perusing?
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
Has this been given to the union just to make sure
Yes, all three have received it.
they're okay with it?
Yep.
Second.
Any discussion from here? We don't have any half-days scheduled, right?
No, we haven't done that for a while.
Yeah. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstentions? Now you're making me curious.
I don't agree with having school on, I almost presented an amendment. I don't agree with having school on January 2nd. I feel we should have that day off.
What's the significance of January 2nd?
It's just all the kids have been up really late on New Year's Eve, and they don't have any time to recuperate before going back to school, and a lot of people are traveling.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to matters for information and discussion. We do have the voting results in our packets. We know that Becky made her way here. We have another board member who will be joining us next week at the Budget Committee. She had a family issue that she was dealing with this evening, but we will be meeting her soon. And other than that, we do know that the funding formula petitioned warrant article did not pass. The only other that did not pass was the MESA contract. So I have here your voting results. Is there anyone who wants to comment on that? Okay.
On the voting results?
Yeah,
Is my hand high enough?
sorry.
Do you realize that Article 1 is the first time ever that the higher number budget passed? A little bit of a problem with the snow, folks.
Yes, it was a snowy day. All right, the New Hampshire School Boards Association does hold a new board member orientation, and that will be taking place on Wednesday, May 2nd, a little later than usual in the year, but it gives you plenty of time to prepare. So if you'd like to be signed up for that, or if any of the board members want to go to the orientation and get the basics of serving on the school board, you're more than welcome. The district will pay the fee of $85 and get you all signed up. Okay, just write to Lillian if you want to do that.
She knows who Lillian is, right?
I do.
Yeah, she does now. Yeah. Yep. Karen?
Are we going to have a meeting I remember having in past years, I don't recall if we did this most recent year, that talks about just the overall how the school board works, Robert's Rules of Order, all of those general housekeeping items.
That is what this New Hampshire School Boards Association training is all about. But if you're asking for them to bring that to us, they would be willing to do that.
Well, no, it was a school board run that when I first joined, and it was very helpful. It had a whole bunch of packets of information on different motions and whatnot.
We had
It was on a Saturday, I believe, too. It was.
Nick?
we had also, at some point, like 3 years ago or something, talked about having like a packet like an onboard packet for new board members. So that may also be useful.
Okay.
Rather than trying to figure
Like the
everything out and having to.
Organizational chart, just different things that give you some of the background.
Okay. Lisa, do you think we can work with Lillian to pull together some high-level materials that might be helpful?
Absolutely.
Kind of attached to that as well.
Go ahead, Nick.
I think the last org chart that I received was like last year or the year before.
It was in May of 2017.
Yeah. Could the whole board receive a updated version, especially with the changes that we had with the business administrator?
Yep, I haven't finished it, but it's in progress, so yes, I'll get that to you.
Okay. And I am just waiting for the list of committee assignment requests to come back this way. And it may be apparent that some of them are already settled and good. We can come back to that toward the end of the meeting, so Becky has some time to work on it then. Lisa, your turn.
Okay. The snow day request. So just a little history. Last year, we were in this exact same situation where I think it was 7 days, the seventh day bumped the school year into the following week. And it put into question whether or not we could hold graduation on the original tentative date. So last year, I approached the Department of Education, and they granted us a waiver so that we did not have to move graduation. I've been informed this year that those waivers will not be issued for specific to that waiver, to waive the requirement that kiddos can't graduate more than 30 hours or 5 days prior to when other high schoolers finish school. So what we have been encouraged to do, unfortunately, we already have this ability since we schedule by hours, would be to, instead of having, currently what we do is we don't make up the first 5 snow days and we add the rest on to the end of the year. So what I would propose in lieu of that for this year, and this board can take this action, it's in accordance with both DOE policy and with our own policy, is instead of making up all days in excess of 5, students will make up days in excess of 6 days. So in essence, we're building in the 6th day. So instead of finishing on Monday, K-11 students will finish on Friday. Graduation can still happen as scheduled on that previous Saturday. And teachers will still make up the 2 days. So the students would only make up the 1 with the 6 built in. The teachers would make up the 2 because contractually they're here for 188 days, less the 5. So that would be the proposal that I would make so that we are able to continue to have graduation on the current date. With regards to the storm that is potentially coming this week, it doesn't look like it's going to have a great impact on us at this point. I had a call earlier today. So hopefully, if anything, we might have a delay Thursday, if that. It's not looking that this far into the state we're going to get much in the way of snow. If we do, we may want to revisit the discussion because then that would put us 2 days into the following week for kiddos. And I think I've voiced my concern about reducing days for students, even though we base our calendar on hours. We have a lot of kids who depend on our schools to be their safe place, to be fed and to be cared for. And so further reducing from, that would get us down to 169 days, and I would have concerns about that.
So to be clear, Lisa's asking the board for a motion to only make up snow days in excess of 6 rather than 5.
For students.
For students. Is there anyone who would like to make that motion?
Motion to accept as proposed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Nick?
So if we do that, how are we going to accommodate these extra hours?
We don't have to. the way we schedule right now, we schedule 176 days, which exceeds the hours requirement by a decent amount for the Department of Education rules. So we don't make up the first 5. So if we have 5 snow days, students only go 171. So we wouldn't need to make up that if we don't make up 6. We're still okay in terms of meeting the hours requirement for the Department of Education. We're still well within the window.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, so all in,
Are they voting on this?
Yeah,
Sorry, it's in the section that says information and discussion, so
I think it's under superintendent's report, and from time to time, she does ask for a motion.
Okay.
seeing as that we may still have a snow day, I mean, I would like to see us hold off on this vote for maybe another board meeting.
Just, Jeremy just reminded me, we have a workshop on Thursday, so we won't have students anyway. So even if we get the snow.
Okay, so we do have no school Thursday. I was just emailing myself.
Thank you, Jen.
I'm like,
He's flagging me down over here, and I wasn't paying attention. So we don't have students on Thursday anyway. So
Okay.
even if there is snow, it wouldn't impact students.
Right, so what I was saying was I'm hoping that we're done with snow days, but before the board goes and cancels school, or saying that we don't have to make up a day, and then we'll revisit it and make up, add the day back plus another day. To avoid that chaos, I think maybe we should wait another, is there anything that's pressing that keeps us from waiting one more board meeting?
Just folks making travel plans and us, securing the things we need to secure for graduation. The tent rental tends to be a big thing. Moving the date can impact whether or not we can get the tent that we typically use to move outside. That was one of the big concerns last year. And I have had some requests from parents about family traveling, trying to get those arrangements made.
Nick?
So assuming that if we're going to be going into the next week, we're probably not going to get, I'm guessing, there's me being a weatherman, guessing that we're not going to get 5 more snow days. So I would like to see us hold off on voting on this until we give it a little more time. We have a little more understanding of how that last week is going to be impacted. Because we could have a similar situation. We could vote on it tonight, have another snow day, vote on it tonight, have a snow day next week after parents have made these decisions and say, hey, this week we got to add 2 more days. So in a similar way, it's kind of like giving parents some sort of affirmation before we really know as a board.
Lisa, if we did have another snow day, would we still meet the hours requirement if we had to waive 1 more?
You would.
How many more could we waive and still meet the hours requirement?
I have that here. Hold on. So if we don't make up 6, let's look at it this way. The minimum number of hours for elementary school is 977, 1,012. If we don't make up 6, now currently we schedule 1,012 with 176 days. With not making up 6, that brings us to 977.5, and the minimum hours for elementary is 945. So you've still got a few more days in there if you're looking at a 6-hour day. It's actually 5.75 hours per day. At the high school, we schedule 1,056 hours. Not making up the 6 days brings us to 1,020, and the state minimum hours is 990. So you've got another, again, 5 days in there at 6 hours a day. So we still have quite a bit of leeway. Again, with the caveat that you're reducing full days, which it meets the hours requirement, but I'm not certain it's best for kids. But again, weighing all of the options and knowing that the Department of Education has stated pretty clearly that the process and approval of waivers this year is going to be different. This seems to be the best solution.
We do have to remember also that extending the school year impacts things like project graduation as well. Yeah.
Earlier, you had said that if we did have another snow day and it came to possibly having school the following week on Monday, Tuesday, we would want to revisit it. How is your feeling on that?
You may want to revisit it. My concern is just, again, that we only schedule 176 days currently. We anticipate knowing that we don't make up 5 most years, so that means kiddos are in school for 171 days. I just have reservations about reducing the school year even further, because again, there are things beyond academics that kiddos are coming to our schools to access. So we have the leeway within the hours to reduce even further if we have to. But if we were to continue to have, if we had 3 or 4 more snow days, that would be a significant reduction in student time, and it's something the board would probably want to reconsider, I would think.
Any other discussion? So the current motion is to allow for 6 snow days before making up any days at the end of the school year. That would put us out of school by the last Friday rather than on a Monday. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
That was Betty and Nick. Any abstentions? Abstain. That was Becky.
Okay. The update on the district clerk position, I have not had a chance to sit down with Lillian at this point to draft sort of the job description for that. But I have to commend Lillian for doing an outstanding job managing both, working in the superintendent's office and handling the role and duties of the district clerk, and basically getting a lot of on-the-job training along the way. But everything went off very smoothly. So hopefully, I'm hopeful at the next board meeting we'll have a draft of sort of what that task list is. And I think we had talked about just posting that as a sort of a regular position for the board. Lillian has not yet indicated if she would consider doing that again next year. I think it's still a little sensitive. It was a very busy time. So, but again, she did a great job, and we'll get that job description to you so that you can get that posted and move forward with that. But thanks for Lillian.
You want to stand up, Lillian?
Oh, she's hiding back there. I didn't realize you were still here.
She's still here. She's listening to your praise.
Hiding a little bit.
She's blushing. Sorry, Lil. I just wanted to talk briefly about the Mount Caesar project. As we know, the warrant article did pass, and I had a meeting with David Lapointe the other day, and we would like to do, or what we are going to do, is to put out an RFP to see if there's a construction management company that would be able to perhaps come in, manage the project, and get it done this summer, as opposed to putting it off until next summer. As you know, traditionally, we've handled, especially since Dave has been here, we've handled our construction projects internally. And, I think this was an attempt to, try to move the process quicker. I know Neil has spoken before, and others have too, the fact that we vote this in March and we don't actually get rolling on it until the following year. And that's because we just don't have the capacity to be able to get all those moving parts as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to give you the information that we are going to put out an RFP. So if you see that posted, that's why. And then because of the size of the project, that would be something that would come to Finance and Facilities for the approval of any bids that we would get if we decided that there were some that we wanted to one that we wanted to move forward, and then the board would be able to weigh in at that time. So just wanted you to have that information. I didn't know if there's any questions on that or not, but it seemed, Dave and I talked about it. I thought it was a great idea, and if we can get that project moving this summer, it would be awesome. So hopefully that will work out. I also included in your packet some information regarding March 14th, which was a snow day for us, as you know. But I had talked at the last meeting briefly about the walkout that had been planned sort of across the country. And we came back on the following day, or was it 2 days later? I've lost track. 2 days later. And we had students at the middle high school during that day, first day back in session, express an interest in having the walkout, even though they had missed because we were out of school that day. And so because it wasn't publicized at that point, the students were given the option of exiting the school to the front of the school or staying inside in the auditorium. And most of them, if not all of them, chose to stay and go into the auditorium and observe 17 minutes in recognition of the victims in Parkland. It was very peaceful. The students were very respectful, and it overall was very well received. I know there's been some articles in the paper about what's happened in other districts, but overall, it was a very positive experience. I shared with you some correspondence that I had regarding the district's position on the walkout, and just in terms of, and I think you had all seen the Drummond Woodsum a document that had gone out about how schools could respond, outlining the 3 different ways in which schools could respond. And so I just wanted to share with you sort of what I had shared with this particular parent about what the school's response was and why. And so if you receive any questions, feel free to just take that document and use that to respond as well. But I wanted you to have that as well. Let's see. The March 22nd, which is Thursday, yes? Thursday, the Comprehensive School Climate Inventory Survey will be open. And so just as a recap, a number of years ago, the Community Relations Committee engaged in a process that we called roundtable discussions with folks in our schools, just to get a sense of what was happening in our schools and some feedback about things that we do well and things that we could do better. And so the CSCI is a comprehensive climate survey. It'll involve surveying staff members in our schools, students from grades 3 and up, and parents. And this is an opt-in survey for students, so parents will have to actively opt in for their students to participate. So we deliberately timed this so that it would open up right as conferences start, so that folks can have conversation at the school level with parents as they come in for conferences and encourage them to participate in the survey. So the School Climate Center will collate all the data and will give us reports on the data. They'll do sort of the analysis looking at how parents respond to certain questions, for example, and how staff or students might respond to a similar question of a similar topic, and look for discrepancies to see where perceptions might not match. And that'll be a big piece of what that survey will get to us. So once we get those results back, we'll funnel those through to community relations, and eventually they'll come up to the board as well. So just so you're aware, I think I sent out the email to you as well tonight, just letting you know, reminding you of that. And I think that is all. We will have the need for non-public this evening under C and E. And that's it.
C and E?
C and E.
Okay. We have several policies for second read. And Becky, I realize you haven't seen these in the past. The way this generally works is that these are given to the board members at one board meeting. We review them and think about it for 2 weeks, and then we come back at second read and we would have a vote. Do you feel comfortable if the board votes on these policies this evening? Yes. Okay. So go ahead, Scott.
So everybody's had these policies now for the 2 weeks. I guess before we take a motion, I'd like to ask if anyone feels we should address any of these policies individually, or could we take a motion for all 8 of these policies as one? Does anyone have a strong opinion about any one of these in particular?
I'd make a motion to consider all the policies at once.
I'll second that.
Would you care to make that a motion to pass all of the policies?
I would care to make that, motion to pass all of the policies as written.
And second from
Second?
Betty still?
Mhm.
Okay. Well then, discussion.
I would prefer to take them separately. I just wanted to let you know.
Nick?
I don't have any objections personally, but if there is somebody that wants to discuss one, I would like to give that respect to that person to be able to voice their concern about it, any specific
Pull
one.
it back out of the
Yes.
package. Yeah. Karen, is there one in particular?
No, I guess are we going to go over the changes, or are we just going to, we all read them, vote on it? Or what brought about the changes, or anything, just a brief summary from each one, or are we just going to vote?
I'll answer that 2 ways.
Sorry, and I'm trying to pull it up because it was in my email from the
Yep.
previous.
So these are in your
That's what
packet from last meeting.
I'm doing the same thing, trying to bring them up.
As I mentioned earlier, the policy committee has quite the backlog. So my hope and intent for the year would be that by delivering them to you for first read, you would in fact take the 2 weeks so that when we come to this moment at the second read, we don't burn an hour talking through them one at a time. But at each vote or each second read, I would extend the opportunity, we can pull any one of them individually out if people want to discuss a particular one. I think that's always an option.
I guess could we have a few minutes then just to, because they're all labeled by,
There's a
the
paper
numbers.
copy of the collection if you want to look at it
oh,
on
okay,
paper.
because I'm pulling them up one at a time here. Thank you, that's helpful.
Is there any other discussion while Karen takes a little bit of time?
There was one thing I had.
I can say that aside from playground safety, a good body of the work is related to the Drug and Alcohol Special Committee that Matt made recommendations to our policy collection that went through administration to identify where to feather them into our policy book as a whole, and that resulted in a number of the motions you have in front of you. We're plugging in things that the board already nodded their head to, but now we needed to go through the official putting it on paper.
Lisa?
Yes. Nick?
And just for the public that's watching us, so they don't just get this block, we passed a whole bunch of policies. I mean, I think we should at least just read what the titles are so that the public has some understanding. I have it up in my email if you want me to, I can.
Yep.
There is policy of the use of tobacco products, a policy on expense reimbursements, a policy on the safety program, policy on background investigation and criminal records check, looks like we have another on tobacco.
There's 3 related
Yeah.
to drugs, alcohol, tobacco.
Advanced, is that a policy? Yes, IHCD. Advanced coursework, advanced placement courses. Student conduct. Drug and alcohol use by students. And that looks like it's it.
And playground safety was in the
Is
list.
there another one? I think that was the safety one that I had.
Okay.
Student safety.
So not, again, never once are we trying to breeze over this moment and not give people an opportunity to discuss, just trying to be expeditious. So if someone wants to discuss any one of those, now would be the time.
Lisa?
Yes.
So the one concern I had, and it ties over with several of the other ones, is regarding the tobacco products ban and also the tobacco-free schools.
Which one?
Well, there's 2 different ones, and, sorry, where's the number on this? I guess it's the first few in the packet anyways.
ADC.
DC?
ADC, and then I guess it would also tie over into GBED. I noticed that it says products containing tobacco, and it says or nicotine in any other form. And then it goes on to discuss employees, and it says no employee shall use any tobacco product on school premises. It sounds to me that would also eliminate, say, if an employee needed to use something to quit smoking, like lozenges or gum.
Patch.
And a patch. And I personally wouldn't want an employee to be in that situation if they're attempting to quit smoking.
Valid concern.
Yep. I don't think that the special committee really discussed that or brought any recommendation forward on it that I recall.
I'd have to double check, but they're considered tobacco products, and I believe they fall under the tobacco-free school zone.
Might need some kind of an exemption notice on this.
Yeah, what I would suggest, if,
And for that matter, I mean, I hate to say this, but if a student is smoking and a student needs, you know, especially under the guidance of their doctor, to use those products to quit smoking, I would even extend that to students. I don't know if that's a case with any of our students, but if they had a doctor's note, you know, trying to take care of that.
so I would say that the policies you have before you, the overall intent is to synchronize the student-facing policies and the employee-facing policies to have matching definitions of things like what is school premises, being on a bus for a field trip counts, right? That kind of definition work. And then also defining, what counts as a tobacco or nicotine product has been clarified. That's a lot of the intent and the housekeeping of these policies. If there's no objection or no one wants to make an amendment, I would suggest that we pursue with this approval, and as at least the current policy chair, I will put that suggestion regarding products related to smoking cessation on a future agenda. And then these might come back around if we need to define that. But I would like to move forward with the good work that committee did to, formalize our policy, at least going into the next school year.
Would it be easy for the policy committee, and again, this is difficult because we don't know who's going to be on the policy committee, to just have a one sentence that says, with the exception of, with a doctor's note, smoking cessation products, or
To
what would not?
Lisa's point, I don't know that we're at that liberty given
Oh.
the tobacco-free school law.
Okay.
So we have to research that.
Oh, I see what
Why
you're
don't we
saying.
just remove this one from the list and just go on?
I think Karen's brought up some valid concerns about this, and this is the very purpose of having these first and second reads, is to have this sort of discussion and come up with, if some of these things do surface, that it should go back to policy to be reviewed. And I think it would, as was said, we should probably remove these tobacco policies until, that way we're not updating the policy and then updating the policy a couple months later. I'd like to see it be updated once properly based on what the board sees as should be done with them.
Okay.
So I would make I guess, an amendment to remove is it 2 or 3 policies?
It would be ADC, GBED, and
Yes.
JICH.
To remove those 3, just to send them back to policy to look into that issue and vote on the other ones in a block. I have to add the last part.
Second that.
So we have a motion on the floor already. I'm curious whether
That
that
was
is
an
a
amendment.
friendly.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is it a friendly amendment?
yeah, well, the motion is from the policy committee, and I think I can take that as a friendly.
So actually, Rob Colbert made the motion and Betty seconded. Are you
I'll
okay
take that
with-
as a friendly.
Okay, so we'll pull out the 3 about tobacco then.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion before the board votes on all of the policies as a batch, with the exception of the 3 regarding tobacco? All right. So everyone who feels it's appropriate to pass all of the other policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, because I was looking through separate ones.
Good idea. Jeremy, would you speak with us about Cheshire Career Center and where we stand with the contract?
Actually, I will. I attended a meeting today to go over the contract one last time with superintendents from Fall Mountain and Keene, and also Eric Feldborg from the New Hampshire Department of Education, and Lisa Danley, the center director at CCC. And the purpose was, there was twofold. A couple of questions had come up since the last draft from members of the committee, and also the commissioner has had a chance to take a look at the first pass of the contract, and he had some questions and potential suggestions for revision. So we worked through those this morning, and Eric Feldborg took those back to the Department of Ed with him. So I expect that will go back to the commissioner, and he'll review it one last time, and hopefully we'll come to some consensus on those language articles, and we'll get it back before the end of the school year for a signature. And it is a 20-year agreement, so it would extend through, it was funny seeing the date 2038 on the document, but it would extend through 2038.
It's like a mortgage.
All right.
You have a question?
Neil?
I don't know what got discussed last meeting, and I apologize, I couldn't make it, but it really concerns me that so few kids went to that tour. I think it was 8 kids. 37% of our graduates will go directly into work, and only 8 kids went to see what was available. Are they all going to go to work for McDonald's? or what? I don't know what you guys discussed while I was not here, but that's simply amazing that we can't get the kids to go. And I got no response from the principal on this, so I assume she feels it's okay that only those few kids went.
We did go over a recap of Lisa's response, which was that many of the students already know that they're going to college. Many of the students already know that they're going into the military. Many of the students already attend Cheshire Career Center. So lots of that 38% is engaged.
37% don't go to the military, don't go to college. In other words, they go directly to work.
And many of them are already attending Cheshire Career Center.
Yeah, how many? 40, right? Or less?
Karen?
57, I think, 58.
No, that isn't the number I got from the other Lisa that works there.
Or perhaps they've been on a tour in the past.
I just wanted to make a point, because I've heard this a couple times, or actually several times at the board level, that a lot of the opportunities at CCC are only for those that are going directly into the workforce. Cheshire Career Center also has computer programming and other courses that many college-bound students would attend. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I've heard that comment several times. So it's not just for those students that are going directly into the workforce.
Nursing, early childhood education.
That's correct.
Yeah. Jeremy?
And I just want to say that we are looking at the enrollment in CCC and actively trying to figure out how to help with that and to get the enrollment up there from our school. We're looking at scheduling. I've been in contact with Rob Millay a lot about, historically, why don't we have a large number going, and looking at the problems. Lisa Spencer and I have talked a lot, and we're working with guidance on our end and their end to look at scheduling. So it is on our radar. It is happening. We are looking at it. But I don't have the exact answer for you, but it's not being forgotten.
You're looking at attending. I'm saying they didn't even go to see it.
Well,
only 8 kids went to see what was there.
And there was an offer to set up a second tour if it felt that it was...
They'll even supply the bus.
All right. Any other discussion on this matter? Nick?
I don't know if this is something, I would like to see administration handle it as far as, getting the information to the kids. I don't know if it's something that should be done, sent to the parents or sent to the kids themselves or what, but it seems like there's a tremendous opportunity there that's kind of untapped.
All right. Moving on to Fiddler on the Roof, there was a cancellation on the opening day of that show. Can you help us to understand the impact that had?
Yeah, I've been working to try to gather some of that impact. I don't have complete information tonight, but I can share some. And I just wanted to also mention that I held out as long as I could. I really hoped we might be able to do a delay. And so, I know that...
I'll say that Lisa had a covenant with the other school districts that they would hold out as well. She tried hard.
I think we all thought we could be the hero, not just for the production, but just in general. None of us wanted another snow day. So some of our contiguous districts, we went with the delay initially, or held off making the call initially. But then in the morning, it was just obvious we didn't have a choice. So regarding the impact, I know I've been able to ascertain that the cost to produce the total production was about $11,000, and that we had about $6,000 in ticket sales. I know there was revenue from advertising, but I was not provided with that number. I just checked my email; I haven't gotten it yet, so I don't know what the total revenues were. I do know that Thursday night tickets could have been used or exchanged for another evening performance or refunded, and I was informed that just 3 tickets were refunded that night, or for Thursday. So that was about $30. We had a discussion, or there was, indication about, potential in lost sales at the door for folks that didn't buy their tickets in advance. With the snowstorm, I think that's might have been a lower number than normal. I think the range I was given was typically, anywhere from $750 to $1,500 at the door sales. So with the snow, I'm not sure how that would have impacted that. So I don't have a good sense of, loss or gain. I don't know. I asked, and again, I haven't just had the opportunity to gather all this information. In the past, when we haven't had revenues exceed our costs, how have we handled that? So, I think I'll have more complete information at the next meeting regarding the total financial impact. But as I stated, if there is the need to make up that difference, we do have a student activities account that was rolled over from a number of years ago from older student accounts that has some funds in it that could offset those costs.
Great, thank you. And Neil Moriarty, you had a request, and I see that you've handed out a little piece of paper.
Yes, I did. I thank you all for delaying it till today. So I passed out my draft. I hope everybody's got a copy. I guess I'll read it to you unless you want me to read it yourselves.
Go ahead and read it, Neil.
Whereas no one is allowed to keep those documents that are provided for a short period of time, discussion, and then collected by the SAU 93 staff. These documents could be modified while in custody after the review, such as the U.S. Senate document that was given to the President for security clearance in February of 2018. Here's my motion. Have one copy stamped on each page, master, dated and initialed by the SAU chair. On each page, hereafter called master, have the town of Swansea trustees store the masters in date sequence. Only an SAU 93 clerk can retrieve a master at the request of the SAU board. Given the SAU 93 clerk is an employee of the SAU 93, the SAU 93 board will appoint an alternate person to retrieve the master form from the Swansea trustees.
Okay. At this time, we won't take a second to that motion, but we can actually talk about this motion again at the next board meeting. Right now, it's under information and discussion.
Understood.
And let's come up with a list of questions that we might like to have answered for next board meeting so that we can take action at that time. What do we want to know about this?
To this point, has there been any issue that cause concern?
Scott?
I can tell you that there is policy BEDG, which is on the policy's future agenda for late spring, early summer. Because there was an RSA change in 2017, I don't know what that entails. I don't know how that would impact this potential motion. But I know that policy has work to do on this topic, and I think it would be wise to try to consider them in tandem.
I'd like to know, is the town of Swansea willing to take on this responsibility?
That was my question.
Anyone else?
Well, couldn't we just look at this at the next meeting, and then if the policy comes up, you can just delete this and go to your policy?
Policy committee won't get to it in time. If you'd like for us
That's what I'm saying. Let's just pass this as a motion and then let the policy pick it up when they're going to get to it.
We can't address this as a motion tonight because it fell
I
under...
understand, because of the same reason.
Yeah. But we will put it on next meeting's agenda, and if you want to have it just delayed until policy committee looks at it, we can do that at that time. Any other questions that we might want to investigate before bringing this back? Winston?
Yeah, I'd like to know the purpose of the motion.
The purpose of the motion is it could be modified. After we've discussed the document and it gets collected, somebody could change it. Just like it happened at the Senate document that was given to Trump, they changed the document.
That's where I was trying to get the connection to
Karen?
Senate document.
I thought, I'm recalling from when this was originally brought up, I thought the other concern was sometimes we make amendments to minutes and they're sealed minutes. So we make the amendment, but we never actually see what it says after it's amended. So I thought that was the other concern.
Okay. And is that part?
Well, we all keep the minutes. There's no problem with
Well,
minutes.
not with sealed minutes, though. So say we have sealed minutes and we vote on.
They'd fall
with
in
an
this
amendment.
category. If they get collected,
Right, so if we make an amendment to sealed minutes, we never see the revised copy.
Never see the revised copy, we never see the copy that got stored.
All right. So then the plan is to have this on the next meeting's agenda. And if we want to have a motion to table until policy can deal with it, that's fine, but it will be on next meeting's agenda, okay?
Oh, Betty has a question.
I have one quick
Oh,
question.
Betty, sorry.
You referenced something to do with the federal government and the U.S. Senate document, but do you know of any instance where that's happened in this district?
No, I don't. How would I know,
Okay.
right? If it's been modified, how would I know? You take it away from me. I don't even agree with the fact that you take them away, but that's the way it is. But Betty, you tell me how I could find that out and I'll do it.
I'm sure you will.
You said Spotify, right?
Excuse me?
Did you say Spotify?
I highly doubt it.
That's what we were just asking ourselves. Is there some definition of the word Spotify that we don't know about? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to joint meeting with the Budget Committee. That is next Tuesday, same place, same time. There will be 2 topics on the agenda. I'll say that Wayne Leckleiter will be running that meeting. It's an official meeting of the Budget Committee, and the school board will be attending there. So what they'll do is they'll swear in their new Budget Committee members, and we'll have Kristen sworn in at that meeting as well. They'll start their meeting with a couple of items from their agenda, and then we'll move into our joint session with them. I'm going to let Wayne lead the meeting because he has 2 things that he wants to discuss. He wants to go over all of the building assessments and to accomplish the original intent that we hoped, which is to come up with a capital improvement plan, well, to come up with a plan to create a capital improvement plan, or at least talk about where we're at, right? He also wants to talk about some sort of a committee for the apportionment formula. So that's on his mind. He just wants to make sure that the board has it front and center as a priority for this year. So those will be the 2 things. Please bring your binder with all of the building assessments because the board has those and it's costly to reprint them. If anyone needs it again, and Becky will get you one. If anyone needs it again, please let Lillian know. We'll come up with a few more. And I think she'll be building them for the Budget Committee as well. Betty, do you know the binder I'm talking about?
It's this one right here.
Mine's electronic. I never got one of those.
He left.
So if you want one in paper, we can get that to you.
Just contact Lillian.
Yeah.
She still has them.
Okay, just let Lillian know. Nick?
And just to be clear for the public, anybody that wishes to view these documents, they're on the school's website.
Yes, they are.
What section are they under, Lisa? Remember?
Good question. Jeremy, can you pull those up? I believe they're under, I'm not going to speculate.
Well
until
hidden.
we Pull it up.
But it's there.
Yeah, that's why I want to be clear for everybody. Because if they can't find it in a couple seconds, then
It's got her
Then
hand.
nobody else
I'll
will
hope
either.
for.
I think it's under Finance and Facilities
think it-
Committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to move those to one of the items that's on the main page?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Karen?
We'll put them front and center.
Karen and then you, okay?
I don't know how difficult this would be. I think Dave may have left, but the only thing we don't have in this packet is Mount Caesar because he already had an idea of what that would be, since that's the school that's currently being worked on. I don't know if he could give us a brief summary for Mount Caesar so that we have that included with the rest of the school assessments.
Yeah, second on that, even though it's not a motion.
And can we make sure Dave is at the meeting? I'd like Dave to be in attendance at that meeting.
Okay. Lisa, would you like for me to do that, or will you take that on?
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
And Neil?
Is Dave Lapointe going to be able to give his pitch about what he calls $1 million a year savings?
I'm not familiar with that concept, but can we ask him if he's willing to give his pitch
He
on
left.
$1 million a year savings?
Okay.
Do you know what that means? Will he know what that means?
Yes, I do know what it means.
Well,
They
well-
put together a plan. I will call Dave myself. He said he would probably be able to find it. Well, we never have a finance meeting, so we couldn't discuss it. Nothing against Karen.
Nick, did you have something?
Yes, can we just be clear to the public as well when that meeting is? That's next week, right?
It is open.
Yeah, so that meeting is happening at 7 o'clock PM Tuesday.
Here?
Here.
27th, yep.
You think the location may be different?
It's at the,
I was going to bring up that this
At
conflicts with
some-
policy committee.
At some point, it did say 6:30, but policy is at 5 o'clock.
I had 7.
Yep, okay.
And this one's at 7.
Yep.
All right, Rob?
I was actually the one who asked for this discussion tonight because Winston had said something and it really made me think. When I originally asked for this meeting to be with the school board, you know, there was a lot of things racing through my head as what I was hoping to achieve, but it seems like you and Wayne have had some discussions. Is there a goal and a scope of what you're trying to achieve? I mean, you said to create a committee to study or create, I can't remember the exact language you said.
So
The apportionment aside, I'm talking in regards to the physical plant.
the motion from the board was for me to set up a joint meeting with the budget committee.
Right.
And I did that. And from there, it took a little bit of a life of its own because Wayne has some ideas about what he wants to accomplish as an agenda within that meeting. So it'll just be our responsibility to make sure that if we're not addressing the things that you originally intended, that we bring them up.
Okay.
All right. The last item, well, actually, I've moved committee reports to the very end. So now we have policy BDF, advisory committees to the board. The reason that this one is in your packet this evening is because there is a fairly large group of folks calling themselves the Fair Funding Group. I would say probably 12 to 15 active participants who will be meeting on Thursday of this week. And their primary goal is to continue discussion about the apportionment formula. The board needs to consider whether it would like for an official advisory committee to come together, or if it's the will of the board just to let folks meet in an informal way and bring their recommendations toward the end. So the reason that I put the policy here is because if we would like for this to be an advisory committee, the committee has to be, the activity has to be assigned in writing, so we have to tell them what we want them to accomplish. And the board will have the power to dissolve the committee if it chooses, and all appointments of citizens to advisory committees have to be made by the board. So we would have some responsibilities if we feel like we want this to be an official advisory committee to the board. Also, they would be subject to 91A open meeting law if they were an official advisory committee. However, if it's just a group of citizens talking and throwing around ideas, none of this is necessary. So that's the reason that this is here under information and discussion, is because we need to ask ourselves, do we want an official advisory committee? Or do we want to allow them to continue meeting informally? Here.
Do you know, this is the first I'm hearing of this, so who's on this committee? What towns?
If you want to see the internal activities, there is a group called Fair Funding on Facebook. You're welcome to join, and you can see all of the posts and the folks who have accepted to attend the meeting, which is taking place on Thursday.
Do you know primarily, or you're not sure who's part of this?
I know several of the members of the committee. I know the names of the people that I've seen speaking, sharing ideas there, but they have not come together yet. That will happen on Thursday. And I believe it's their intent to come back to us the first meeting in April with a proposal, or perhaps not a proposal, but at least an update on what they hope to accomplish. Betty?
Where and what time?
So this is happening at the fire station in Fitzwilliam at, there, Jennifer, 6 o'clock PM on Thursday.
Okay.
So maybe my mind is getting twisted. There's a group out there, and we're going to appoint them as an advisory committee to us?
There's a group out there, they're either going to do their own thing and come back to us with ideas.
Right.
Or we're going to rein it in and have an advisory committee that we sanction, and we will have a little bit more say in how the group functions.
We have decided to have an advisory committee?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
We're talking about, okay, and then, and I'm just trying to get clear in my head because I'm not that bright.
They're going to
And then
move
the board-
forward no
the-
matter what.
Well, that's fine. And then the budget committee itself is going to study this matter as well?
The budget committee wants to talk about what the board intends to do to handle the problem.
Well, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse yet if we haven't had that meeting yet. Just my opinion.
So the timeline is that the first meeting of the Fair Funding Group is happening on Thursday. We will meet with the budget committee on Tuesday, next Tuesday, to find out what it is that they have in mind. I suspect that the Fair Funding Group will come to us on the Tuesday after that to say what they have in mind, and then the board makes a decision about whether it's official or unofficial.
Or if we need one at all.
Right.
Even if we say we
We're kind
don't
of
need
jumping
one.
the horse here, but
Yeah.
did I miss a vote where we said there's
Yeah.
going to be an ad hoc committee?
It's going to happen no matter what. It's either,
How is an ad hoc
May not be
committee going to happen
sanctioned
no
by the
matter
board.
what?
no, the group is going to continue meeting and having the discussion no matter what.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
If there's 12 people that want to meet and talk, I mean, we have 12 people in our town alone that meet and discuss budgetary issues
Well,
related to the school.
exactly. So I'm not saying there is going to be an ad hoc committee. But there's going to be a committee out there. It's either sanctioned by the board or not, and we'll
Okay,
make that
all right,
decision
I
in 2
misunderstood
weeks.
where you were going. Okay, thanks.
All right, Sherry, sorry.
No, that's all right. So we had some people eloquently speak tonight on encouraging us to go in that direction, and who I think might be interested in serving in that semi-official, I'm not sure what ad hoc capacity. And we have this other group who has organized themselves who may not care about becoming official and being subjected to the role that the
Same
board
group.
would need to play.
The two
think
folks
that's the
that
same
spoke this
people.
morning, same group.
Same group, thank you, that helps, because
Yep.
I was like, we got all
Also, the
kinds
two
of
ladies in the
groups.
front here, same group. Any other discussion about this? So we're prepared to make a decision in 2 weeks. Brian?
So one of my questions, if it's not sanctioned by the board, it's any recommendation, any town or any group is free to propose a warrant, a motion on the warrant, right? To be voted upon.
No. The answer to that is that they can do all of the work to come up with a fair formula, but the only way their fair formula is going to pass is if it has the support of the board in the end. By setting up an advisory committee, we're saying we intend to listen from the very beginning. By not setting up an advisory committee, what we're saying is you can do all of your work, but we just might not accept it in the end.
So then sorry, Nick, one more added question. So does the board have the sole power and discretion to make a change to that formula just by voting as a group, or does it still have to go before the voters?
Eventually
My
have to
question,
go to
I
the
guess,
voters.
is if we don't have the sole power and anyone, just like someone did here this past vote, has the power to put a petition out and then put it on the, make it a vote, I don't see why we're obligated to do that then.
So there's an answer to your question. Right now, we're sitting on a formula that was proposed sort of inappropriately. We're 75-25, which is not one of the formulas that can be proposed by a town.